Hey guys, and welcome back. My name is Miss Danielson, and today we're looking at dividing positive and negative numbers. I hope you joined us for adding and subtracting integers and integer multiplication, because in both of those lessons we started by talking about the misuse of the word integer. We'll start there again today, but as we've been over this before, we're just going to go through this very quickly. First of all, integers and rational numbers are two different types of numbers. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers, including 0, but they do not include fractions or decimals. Rational numbers are whole numbers or fractional numbers, including 0, which could be positive or negative. So here are some examples of rational numbers. Now, a little added bit to the definition of a rational number is it's a number which could be expressed as a fraction. And I've shown before that all of these values, whether they're positive, negative, whole numbers, or decimal values, they can all be expressed as fractions. Starting with dividing values with the same sign, dividing both positive numbers or dividing both negative numbers, our answer will be positive. When the sign is the same, the answer will be positive. The operation we are performing will never change. When it's a division, it will always be a division. When we're doing this division, to make things simpler, we're just going to know that our answer will be positive, and we'll focus in on the absolute value of our answer, and at the end we'll say the answer is positive. We talked about absolute values in our first lesson on adding and subtracting integers. Absolute values are just the value of a number when you ignore the plus or minus sign. So it's that value's distance from 0. Example A, I'm doing positive 8.4 divided by positive 0.7. Because the signs are the same for this division, I know that my answer will be positive. So let's start there. Positive 8.4 divided by positive 0.7 will be positive something. Focusing on those absolute values, to divide decimals, it might be easiest if I first convert these decimal values into fractions. 8.4 is the same thing as 84 divided by 10, just moving the place values down 1. And 0.7, or even easier, 7/10, is the same thing as 7 over 10. So writing these decimal values as fractions, I'm doing 84 over 10 divided by 7 over 10. If you need this reminder, to divide fractions, you simply flip the second fraction over and multiply. That's called cross multiplying. So I've got 84 over 10 multiplied by 10 over 7. To multiply fractions together, we just need to do top times top and bottom times bottom. So I'll have 84 times 10 over 10 times 7. Simple, right? Maybe. Let's keep going. So this fraction, 84 times 10 over 10 times 7, obviously I can multiply that through to simplify it, or even better, I'll simplify this fraction now, finding a common factor. I can divide both the top and the bottom of this fraction by 10. That leaves me with 84 on the top and 7 on the bottom. So all of this was done so that I could see that I can just work with whole numbers and do 84 divided by 7. And so let's set up our long division. Long division reminder here, I am doing 84 divided by 7. That means I'm trying to find out how many 7s go into 84. So in the 84 is inside this house and 7 is knocking on the door. How many times can I put 7 into 84? You may remember this little rule here, DMSB. I know our kids remember this in primary from drunk mice swim backwards. But of course the D doesn't stand for drunk, it stands for divide. First thing we're going to do is try and do 8, the first digit, divided by 7. 8 divided by 7 is 1. Next is the M, and the M stands for multiply. Because my next step is I'm going to take that 1, and I'm going to check how much is 1 times 7. Multiply. 1 times 7 is 7. Next comes S. S stands for subtract. Because 7 didn't fit perfectly into 8 one time, there's something left over. 8 minus the 7 is going to give me a remainder of 1. But I'm not finished yet because I haven't divided all digits of the value yet. So B is to bring down. Bring down the next digit. I can't put 7 into 1, but if I bring down the 4, I can put 7 into 14. So I start over again with the D, divide. What is 14 divided by 7? 14 divided by 7 is 2, and my answer is going up at the top here. So far my answer is 12. Am I done? Let's find out. I've just divided. What's my next step? M, multiply. I just put a 2 up the top there. 2 times 7 is 14. After we multiply, we subtract. 14 take away 14 leaves me with 0. After the subtraction, I have B, bring down, but there is nothing left for me to bring down, and I have no remainder. That means I'm done. So my answer is up here at the top. My answer is 12. And remember, I'm doing a positive divided by a positive, so I know I've got a positive answer. My answer is positive 12. Simple as that. Let's go through it again. Question B, I've got two negative values being divided. Both signs are negative. They are the same sign, so my answer will be positive. Now let's focus on those absolute values, 1.92 and 1.6. They are both rational values, so I could write them as fractions, and the easiest fractions I could do is dividing by a base 10 value. 1.92 is the same thing as 192 divided by, I need to move my place value 2 over, so divided by 100. And 1.6 is the same thing as 16 divided by, moving my place values over 1, 10. So now I've got two fractions being divided. Remember that to divide a fraction by another fraction, we cross multiply. Flip the second fraction over and multiply. So I'm doing 192 times 10 over 100 times 16. Again, I could multiply this through, but to save myself a step, I'm going to simplify this fraction just as it is. I can divide both the top and the bottom by 10, which is going to leave me with 192 on the top, but on the bottom I'll still have 10 times 16. Let's put that 10 to the side for now, because I can easily multiply and divide by 10 later. But I can now do 192 divided by 16. And remember that 10 in the denominator? We'll just remember to divide by 10 later. So 192 divided by 16. Let's set up that long division. 192 is being divided by 16. We want to know how many 16s go into 192. 192 is in the house and 16 is knocking on the door. Drunk mice swim backwards, so I'm trying to do this division. 1 divided by 16 we can't do, so look one more digit over. 16s into 19. I can fit 1 16 into 19, but I want to make sure that my answer's lined up. So I put a 0 over the 1 because 16 could not go into 1, and a 1 over the 9. That was the D. 19 divided by 16 was 1. Next, M. Multiply. 1 times 16 is 16. Then we're going to subtract. 19 minus the 16 is 3. So I've got 3 left over, but I am not done. After we subtract, bring down. Bring down that 2. I've got 32 now. Then we start over with the division. 16 goes into 32 twice. 32 divided by 16 is 2. I put 2 at the top where my answer is. And then again, after I've done my division, I'm going to check that I've done that correctly. What's 2 times 16? Is it as close as it could have gotten? It's exactly 32. So I've done pretty well. Let's just make sure that we're finished. I've done my multiplication. Next is subtract. 32 take away 32 is 0. I've got 0 remaining. And I next need to bring down, but there is nothing left for me to bring down. So I'm done. My answer is 12. But that's not my final answer. Remember, I still need to divide by 10. 12 divided by 10, simple, just move their place values one down. So instead of 12, we've got 1.2. And of course, remember, negative divided by negative is positive, so positive 1.2. Now that we've seen what happens when we divide two values with the same sign, let's look at values with the opposite sign. If the signs are opposite, our answer will always be negative. So put the signs to one side and let's look at the absolute values. If we're dividing two values, regardless of the sign, we will be dividing. So let's divide our absolute values. A couple of examples now. Let's look at example A. Negative 2.4 divided by positive 0.3. I know that when I divide a negative by a positive, my answer will be negative. So let's ignore the signs now, and let's just think about dividing those absolute values. 2.4 is the same thing as 24 divided by 10. And 0.3 is the same thing as 3 divided by 10. So I'm going to get the negative answer of doing 24 over 10 divided by 3 over 10. Remember, to divide by a fraction, we cross multiply. That is, we flip the second fraction over and multiply. The first fraction has not changed. So I'm getting the negative answer of 24 times 10 divided by 10 times 3. Simplify this fraction if you can. I can divide both top and bottom by 10, which leaves me with a really nice simple fraction of 24 over 3. And I'll get the negative answer of 24 divided by 3. We're going to avoid our long division this time because I hope you can divide 24 by 3, and it's 8. So our answer is simply negative 8. On to a slightly more challenging one now. For question B, I'm doing positive 1.82 divided by negative 5.2. So that we can get those negatives and positives out of the way, I know that the signs are opposite, so my answer will be negative. So now let's just focus on those absolute values. 1.82 is the same thing as 182 divided by 100. The decimals moved 2 places. And 5.2 is the same thing as 52 divided by 10. So I'm going to find the negative answer of 182 over 100 divided by 52 over 10. To divide by a fraction, we flip the second fraction over, leaving the first fraction the same, and we multiply them. So I'll find the negative answer of 182 times 10 over 100 times 52. As we've been doing to keep things simple, let's simplify this fraction. Easy common factor, top and bottom, I can divide both top and bottom by 10. Leaving me with 182 on the top, but 10 times 52 on the bottom. We've dealt with questions like this before. We'll just deal with the non-base 10 values, so 182 divided by 52, and we'll worry about the 10 after. So we're getting the negative answer of 182 divided by 52, and later we divide by the 10. So let's set up that long division then. 182 is inside the house. 52 is knocking on the door, asking how many times can I go in. 52 cannot go into 1. 52 cannot go into 18. 52 can go into 182. How many times though? Think this through. I know it's a big number, but surely you know that 2 times 52 would be 104. Let's try one more. 3 times 52 would be 156. And that's probably as close as we can get. So 182, divide that by 52, and that gives us 3 on the top. Nicely lined up because I want to make sure I get my place value right. 52 could not go into 1. 52 could not go into 18. 52 goes into 182 3 times. That was my D. Next I need to M. multiply. 3 times 52, we did that mentally, was 156. The next step is to subtract. I need to do 182 subtract 156. Starting with the units position, 2 take away 6, I can't do. But I can clearly see that 182 is bigger than 156. What I need to do is borrow from one place value up. So 82, I can borrow from the 80 a 10, which will make this 12, and leave this as 70. So 12 take away 6 is 6, and 7 take away 5 is 2, and 1 take away 1 is 0. So that's going to leave me with 26 remaining. We are not done. If you've got a remainder, we must move on to bring down. I don't see anything here that's left for me to bring down, but this is why I've got my answer so nicely lined up. If I've got no values after this, I'll put a decimal and put a 0. And I'll bring down that 0. The reason I've lined this up so nicely is because this decimal in my question is going to put a decimal lined up in my answer. I'm doing 52s into 260, and there are 5 of them. So I put a decimal lined up and I put a 5. 5 times 52, well, I know 5 times 50 is 250, so 5 times 52 is 260. It fits perfectly. My next step, subtract. I see that I've got a remainder of 0, and I've got no other digits to bring down, unless I want to keep bringing down zeros. But I think we're done. Our answer's at the top here. My decimal's in the right place. My answer is 3.5. But remember, we are not done. We've just worked out 182 divided by 52. So our answer is negative 3.5 divided by 10, which just moves our place values down 1. So that's negative 0.35. Now I would hope that you're feeling fairly comfortable with long division by now. But if you're finding working with decimal values or converting decimal values to fractions and working with fractions difficult, don't worry, there are many methods that we can use for this. However, I think it's really important that we get comfortable with our fractions because a lot of people have fraction phobia, and it's really not that hard. Still, let me show you some of the other ways we can divide decimal values. We can use estimation. That is, perform the long division completely ignoring the decimals and then just look at your answer and estimate where you think your answer belongs. You can do this just by dividing values that are close to the values you've been dividing, so rounding. Or we can consider fraction division and cross multiplication, but not in such a complex way as I've just shown you. You just need to look at the place value. Perform your long division, ignoring the decimal point in the divider, then look at the place value of the last digit of the divider and multiply your answer by that base 10 value. Let me show you a simple example. So 14.8 divided by 2. I know that that's going to be 7.4. But 14.8 divided by 0.02, that 2 is in the hundredths position. So I'm going to assume that the answer is the same as the answer above, 7.4, but I need to multiply that answer by 100. So I've moved my decimal 2 places over. It's 740. Now I'm sure this trick seems a lot simpler than what we've just done, but it's based on all of the steps that I've just explained to you. 0.02 is the same thing as 2 over 100. That's 2 hundredths. Dividing by 2 over 100 is cross multiplication. Flip it and multiply, which is 14.8 times 100 divided by 2, or simply 14.8 divided by 2 multiplied by 100. We already have our answer of 14.8 divided by 2, 7.4. So just times that by 100 and we got 740. Finally, before we get onto our practice exercise, we need to remember how to rearrange equations. So for example, negative 4x is equal to negative 1.6. With a number in front of a letter, you must remember that means multiply. So this is -4 times x is equal to -1.6. And if we want to find x's value, we need to get x on its own. So move the -4 to the opposite side of the equation and reverse the operation that it's doing. Now be careful that -4 is not subtracting, it's multiplying by x. And the opposite of multiply is divide. So x equals -1.6 divided by -4. As we've learned this lesson, a negative divided by a negative will be positive. So this is 1.6 divided by 4. But we still need to do that division. It may help to treat 1.6 as 16 divided by 10. And then just simply do 16 divided by 4 and divide your answer by 10. 16 divided by 4 is 4, so 4 divided by 10 is 0.4. X must have a value of 0.4. We could also have questions where we need to fill in the blank. Something multiplied by 0.7 is equal to -8.4. We'll treat that something like it were an x. Like this is algebra. We want to get that blank on its own. So the opposite of multiply by 0.7 is divide by 0.7. And a negative divided by a positive is going to give us a negative answer. So we're just trying to work out what 8.4 divided by 0.7 is, and we'll make that answer negative. Again, it might be helpful to work with whole numbers, so I can treat 8.4 as though it were 84 divided by 10, and 0.7 is 7 divided by 10. And now I'm dividing two fractions. To divide fractions, we flip the second and multiply, so cross multiplying. And I've got 84 times 10 over 10 times 7. That fraction can be easily simplified, dividing both top and bottom by 10, which leaves me with 84 divided by 7. 84 divided by 7, you should be able to do, but let's set up our long division just in case. 84 is on the inside and 7 wants to go in. How many times can 7 go into 8? Once. So we've done our division. Next step is multiply. 1 times 7 is 7. That's not quite perfect. Let's subtract and see what we've got remaining. That leaves us with 1 left over. 7 can't go into 1 though. We need to bring down the 4. 7's into 14, so we're dividing again, is 2. Next we're on to multiply. 2 times 7 is 14, and then subtract, and you'll see that we've got no remainder, nothing left to bring down. We are done. Our answer is 12. Now our answer is negative of 84 divided by 7, so our answer is negative 12. So have a look over those examples now, have a look over your notes, and make sure you're ready for it, because here comes your practice exercise. Go ahead and copy these questions. Decide first if your answers will be positive or negative, and go ahead and work out your divisions. Hit pause now and hit play when you're ready to see the answers. I hope you had a chance to hit pause, because here come your answers. Now I hope you found this lesson helpful. I know it can get a bit confusing at times. Please leave me a comment if there's anything that you're unsure about, and let me know if you feel we need more practice either on just long division or dealing with decimal values. Otherwise, until next time, keep practicing and I'll see you soon.